does God have a chosen people that's like more special to him than other people?
He does, but it doesn't work exactly the way people think it does.
What about though in the Bible? It seems very clearly to lay out, I have these particular people, I've chosen these people, these are my center of my story.
That's totally in there, but again, it doesn't mean what people have taken it to mean. And if you stick around, you'll hear what it does mean.
Dude, I would stick around for that. Hey everybody, welcome to the Swedenborgian Life Podcast. My name is Curtis Childs, and I'm your host. Here's Dr. Jonathan Rose.
Hey.
The premise of this podcast, if you haven't seen it, is we're going through the theological works of the 18th century scientist and theologian and mystic, Emanuel Swedenborg. And he's got this incredible story he tells about, hey, guess what? Reality, afterlife, Bible, it's all not, there's more to it than you think. He had an eyewitness journey where he went and explored these things and brings back these like stunning sort of revelations about them, but they're pretty good. Like they're really good.
It's such a great story, isn't it? Because if you had always, back when travel wasn't so easy and you always wondered, what are things like in Japan or, somewhere on the other side of the world, you hear things about it, but are they true? And then someone, goes over there and writes a whole account of it from a perspective you can relate to and says, look, it's different than you think. Here's how it works.
And Swedenborg's account, has influenced a ton of people throughout history and had a huge impact on religious and non-religious thought. So I feel like we got to explore this. And does it provide answers to the most difficult questions of religion? And I feel like one of the most difficult religious questions in the Judeo-Christian tradition is this idea of the chosen people.
It's really interesting that that's an emphasis. You certainly can find lots of passages about a group being singled out and that, with special favor. And so it's perfectly understandable that people have said, that's us. We're the chosen people, and we should behave that way. And
there's some kid over here who's just born, and there's some kid over here who's just born. That's the one I like. This other one, it's not mine.
So much.
It's not mine. And what do I do? I didn't do anything to be the chosen or not the chosen. So it seems like it's an ethical dilemma, and Swedenborg's explanation is awesome for it. In my humble opinion, we'll see if the folks agree. So if anyone's not familiar with the idea of the chosen people, I'll summarize how the story in the Bible goes. So there's a guy named Abram, who you probably know as Abraham. He gets his name changed to that. He's called by God to leave the land of his birth. Let me know if I get any of this wrong. He's promised that he'll father a great nation. Then once he's Abraham, his grandson Jacob is renamed Israel. He has these 12 sons who produce a new nation from their descendants. So far, so good?
Great.
Then they get enslaved in Egypt. God rescues them from that and leads them to the promised land. He says, and then says, you're my chosen people. So some people will think, okay, well, the people alive today who are descended from those people, that's still God's chosen people.
That was a promise.
So it's still there.
And it's captured in these texts that have been around for thousands of years and read by billions of people.
Yeah. So that would be Jewish people.
What could be more solid than that?
But then there's also some people with Christianity coming in who believe that it was sort of transferred to Christians. So now Christians are God's chosen people. And you see this in theology. If you've been baptized as a Christian, then God accepts you and brings you into heaven, or he doesn't.
The story of that whole exodus of how you get out of slavery is so appealing that I think it's been mapped onto many different cultures and, situations in history to say, okay, here we are, and we deserve this. This is the Holy Land. This is promised for us, because it also has a geographical element, doesn't it? That you're chosen, and there's a place for you. You're going to end up on this, and even though other people are already living there, you're going to live there, you're the ones I want to have live there and not those other people.
And
that's, wow.
So
that's a big thing.
It can lead to a lot of problems, and it's not unique to the Abrahamic faiths. I think you have, or even just to Judaism and Christianity. There's other religions around the world with a similar kind of we're the people, God has selected us vibe to it. So is there actually any chosen people, and what does that mean? So this is the answer according to Swedenborg, that yes, there is a chosen people, but it is more fair and more universal than you think. Why would God even need to choose versus not choose? Why not just everybody?
Yeah.
You don't have enough capacity. So let's begin in Swedenborg's Secrets of Heaven. This is where he goes through these stories in the Bible. In here we're talking about Genesis, I believe, and he's saying this is why it's written like that. And check out this first. I wrote in the margin crazy next to this because it's just like such an intense but pivotal idea in his cosmology. So he says, as a preface to how you read the Bible, this is how you read it: the historical facts in the Word are representative, and the words are each symbolic. This is true of all the narrative parts of the Word, so all the stories in the Word. Not only the books of Moses, but Joshua, Judges, Samuel, and Kings as well. Nothing but history appears in any of them. It seems to be a chronology of events.
Yeah, those are they're the narrative books. They're the historical books that show you that whole. Everything else is the Psalms and the prophets, the wisdom literature, and so on. But that's the history.
Yet, although the literal meaning is a history, the inner meaning holds the mysteries of heaven, which lie hidden there. These mysteries can never be seen as long as we train our mind's eye on the historical details.
Oh.
They are not unveiled until we withdraw our minds from the literal meaning.
Whoa. So that's really interesting that you actually have to kind of actively stop thinking it's about what it seems to be about in order to get through the door to this other inner meaning.
Yes. It is, as it alludes to in the book of Psalms, when it says, I'm going to utter a parable of old, and then tells the whole story of the Israelites.
Right.
This is Swedenborg's claim. Love it or leave it, or don't love it, or just listen. The whole thing, all the description of the narrative action is a symbolic description of the things of the Spirit. Including this chosen people stuff. So a little more on how that fits into the world as we know it. Swedenborg says, the Lord's word is like a body with a living soul. So it might seem strange, like, wait a second, don't focus on the narrative, focus on the spiritual sense. That's just like, well, that's a bizarre way to do it. The Lord's word is like a body with a living soul. Anything having to do with the soul remains invisible, to the point that we scarcely believe we even have a soul, let alone that it lives on after death. Okay, so it's talking about in each one of us. As long as the body monopolizes our thinking. As soon as concern for our person ebbs from our minds, though, qualities of the soul and of life reveal themselves. That is why everything connected with our body has to die before we can be born anew or regenerate. Not only that, the body itself also has to die, so that we can enter heaven and behold heavenly sights. The case with the Lord's word is the same. Its body is the contents of the literal meaning, and as long as we fix our minds on those, we see nothing deeper. When they die, though, the deeper content first stands out in plain sight.
He's wading right into the most profound mysteries there of what are we doing on this planet, and how is it so wonderful? How is it so awful? And all these people that you love, they just die and disappear, and you don't know what happened to them. And what is going on here? But it's fascinating that it's an image and a reality of these outer things. You need them to begin with, but they need to die, and there's this spiritual birth that comes out of that. And
Yeah.
the same, and what a weird thing to apply that to the Bible. I mean, it's
Well,
kind of an amazing way to think about a text.
it's
You know,
to
that
say
it has
that
a body and a soul.
there's a theme. There's a theme in life that things work this way. So he actually sort of sneaks two things together. He talks about like the death and resurrection process, like the literally when people die and you hear about the people who almost died seeing the light and they go and you wake up in heaven. That's one way. But there's also the regeneration process, so that you start out. He said it probably you could have blinked and missed it if you're not really familiar with how Swedenborg uses terms, because he talks about as long as we everything connected with our body has to die before we can be born anew or regenerate. He's talking about he'll use the term bodily to talk about selfishness and materialism and
Yes.
like hedonism. That stuff
Yes.
has to become quiescent in us before we can become spiritual people. So there's that cycle, there's the actual cycle of the body dying, and then there's our understanding of the Bible, which at first you just see it as like this is a history about that, but then you can start to
Amazing.
see there's something deeper here, and you have to get to that point before you can see what it's really all about. Or that's his claim anyway.
And to do that in 3 sentences, I don't know. That's Swedenborg is fun.
Well, let's now we're going to show not tell how he explains this process works in these stories about being chosen. So let's see if it feels like plausible. Is this really how the Bible is? All right, so this is again in Secrets of Heaven. This is actually just earlier than that number that we read. This is explanation of Genesis 12:1. And Jehovah said to Abram, "Go your way from your land and from your birthplace and from your father's house to the land that I show you." This is where it all begins.
This is the call. Yeah.
Here's what Swedenborg says about that. The events of this verse and later ones happened as written, but the historical facts are representative and the words are all symbolic. In an inner sense, so this is what that means. Abram means the Lord, as noted above. So they're talking about, for Swedenborg, when he uses the term the Lord, he means Jesus Christ,
Yep.
in whom he believes is the entirety of God in human
Born into the world in human flesh. Yeah.
Yes.
So Abraham stands for Jesus. Yeah.
Well, I forgot to mention before we got into this, there's multiple layers of meaning. So at
Of course.
first we can see how this applies to Jesus. And because it applies to Jesus, it applies to everyone because he's the source
Sort of
and
the
template.
prototype or something.
Yeah,
right.
he's the alpha and the omega of everything. So that's
Well
that.
said.
That's that source. Then we'll get to how the same thing plays out in each one of us. But first, this is the Jesus version. Okay?
Got it. So that right there changes it.
Oh yeah.
Like say Abraham does not equal Abraham.
No, it's casual as
Yeah.
can be. Abraham means the Lord. So
Yeah.
Abraham does not mean, even though he's saying he's even saying, although he doesn't say every part of the Old Testament literally happened, but he says that certain parts of it did. He says
A
this
lot of
part,
it did,
he
yeah.
says there really was a guy named Abram who got a voice like this, but that's not what this is about.
And it's kind of fun to think about that because wait a second. Like the easy things to think would either be it happened as it happened and it got written down, or B, it's a made up story. It's like Aesop's fable.
Yeah.
No, there was no dog with a piece of meat in its mouth looking in the reflection in the river, whatever. You
Yes.
know. No, it's just a made up story to give you a moral or something. But to say it's both, and then that got me thinking about the lens, the lens work. They didn't have cameras back then, but the way the lens of scripture, why does it focus on Abram? He's got a brother, he's got a father that you hear a tiny bit about, but like,
Yes.
why is the camera on him? Well, that's because yes, that really happened, and things really happened to his brother and his father and his mother and other people, but
Yeah.
they don't have the same meaning. So the camera selected certain shots that tell us, that work as telling this deeper layer story. You
Yes.
know?
Well, and I think he puts it there, which says the historical facts are representative and the words are all symbolic. So you have something that happened, and the thing that happened, like the action there, of it, there's a representation there. I think that's why it needed to happen instead of it just being a story written about it, because there's a whole nother conversation about the need for correspondence between heaven and earth. So there had to be something acted out on earth that would relate to what goes on in heaven. So there's this whole other thing with why it needed to happen. But then the words are all symbolic. Why were these stories recorded in the way they were?
Because they were told in a particular, there are many, there's an infinite number of ways that you could tell the story of Abram. He could have kept a journal or so, like there's lots of different ways that you could, but why does it say? And there's something so evocative about that particular story. Don't a lot of people feel that sense of like, well, you were born over here, but you were called over here.
Right.
And you have to leave everything behind to, it's just powerful. And so there's something about that story really resonates.
Jehovah said to Abram symbolizes a first realization. So this, in Jesus's case, this is the first realization of something greater. Go from your land symbolizes the bodily and worldly concerns he would withdraw from. So you remember that?
So, and I think he's young at this point, and like the way Swedenborg describes it.
Yeah.
This is Jesus. What is he, 10 or 12 or something? He's young, but he's figuring out. Oh wait, this is So it's been a lot about food and all that, but this isn't what reality is all about. There's more.
When we say Jesus is the template. Just earlier, what Swedenborg was saying, look, there's a process everyone has to go through where you have to leave behind your bodily and worldly obsessions, your materialism and your self-centeredness and your superficiality, and go to something deeper. That's what this part of the Bible is describing. It's a process that needs to happen in every human being, and it happened for Jesus. Because didn't we just say he's the template for everything? Why did he come and live a life? Why did God come and live a life on the earth? According to Swedenborg, it's because he was walking this path that we all walk. He forged this path that we all walk. And that's Jesus having his realization. Because long story short, there's like a human element to Jesus and then a divine element. Like he really woke up to the fact that he was actually God. Which is mind-blowing to think about.
Mind-blowing.
But that was important to do it that way, so that's what he wanted to undertake. And this is him, I've got to leave behind this old life and start to come to this new life.
And Abraham's already a huge figure in the sense, don't they say that like three religions in some sense are the Abrahamic religions are descended from him and all that. But
most of the people in the world, isn't it? If you put it all together,
it's a lot.
It's a lot of 3 billion Christians, 2 billion Muslims. It's a lot.
Big. I think it is over half the population, something like that. When you get those three religions, not literally saying that you're genetically descended from him, but in some spiritual sense of part of those religions that came from him.
As part of their canon, have this story of Abram as a
they
pivotal
all see
moment.
him
Like
as
that's when
sort of the progenitor or the ancestor or something of the tradition that they're in. And yet Swedenborg's making it even broader than that. This is were you born?
Right.
You're part of this.
And from your father's house symbolizes ones that were deeper. To the land that I show you symbolizes spiritual and heavenly traits that would be presented to view.
So the father's house, so he needs to leave these kind of external concerns or what preoccupations and so on, but also the stuff that he's inherited, like deeper emotional, mental, whatever,
Yep.
You need to leave that and go to this, which right there, you've already changed what the promised land means. Like spiritual. You're not just talking about a piece of physical territory on the planet.
It's all about the mind. It's all about the mind. or the spirit, whatever.
And it's about heaven. Like his whole thing is called Secrets of Heaven, right? This is how heaven. It's heaven's recruitment. It's the whole plan of how do you get to heaven.
What are spiritual and heavenly traits? What's an example? Can you give me what's one?
The number one trait is considered to be love. Having love, compassion, regard for others, desire for their well-being, those kind of nice traits.
Okay, just so that's what we're talking about. Is like you start here and you're sort of negative and self-focused and egotistical in whatever way. Yeah.
Annoying.
And what we're taking you toward is this enlightened love for everyone that characterizes this state of innocence and peace and heaven that God is trying to get people to. Come over here, you're going to start being like this. I want to bring you out of the land you're in into that land.
And that's why, because you tell the story in different ways. Why doesn't Abraham just stay where he is? Stay with the family. Like, why does he have to leave?
Yeah.
What's that about? But if you're saying, oh no, he's in a certain spiritual condition, and actually that condition is incompatible with the love and compassion and insight and wisdom that I want to take you to, but it's going to involve some sacrifice. You're going to have to give up some old ideas and live in a different place in your mind. Like your mindset's going to need to change.
Yeah. Continuing on. Secrets of Heaven 1411. The symbolism of go from your land as the bodily and worldly concerns that he would withdraw from can be seen from the symbolism of land, which varies depending on the person or thing with which it is associated. So he's talking
about in the Bible, right?
Wherever you hear the word land throughout any part of the Bible,
which comes up a lot,
it has a symbolism, and it says here, which it doesn't always for terms, it varies, but there's a cluster. They're related to each other, the meanings for it. So he says here the reference is to bodily and worldly matters, because the land of birth that Abram was to leave was an idolatrous one. So the narrative here says he was going to leave that land, but the representative meaning is that he would withdraw from the preoccupations of the outer self. In other words, superficial concerns would not conflict or interfere. And since this is about the Lord, the meaning is that superficial aspects would actually harmonize with deeper ones. Okay, so for Jesus' process, yes, he had an outer mind and was living a life like you and I do and had his concerns and things. Those are going to not disappear, but they're going to harmonize with the real stuff that you're here for, which is to realize this divinity.
Yeah, and I think the way that happens is that the spiritual, the heavenly aspect becomes more important and the others are subservient and helpful.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
In case this is too much, this whole let's apply it to Jesus and his process. Which
this is just light fare, isn't it? The purpose of reality and what it is to be human.
Let's give everyone a break and let's just look at then, which Swedenborg actually gives right in this same section, how this story applies to each of us individually.
Oh, okay.
So Abram represents the Lord. This is back in Secrets of Heaven. And because he represents the Lord, he also represents the heavenly self.
The heavenly self. Interesting. Like there's a heavenly part of each of us.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
And Abraham is the name for that part.
So it's a particular, not just you, but a particular part of you.
Yes.
Isaac, too, represents the Lord. So when you fast forward to that part of the story, and therefore the spiritual self. So there's a part of you that's your spiritual self.
Turns out there's hundreds of Jesuses in the, right?
Right.
I mean, there's a oneness to it, but keeps showing, Samson and Gideon, like all these different figures and, yeah.
And Jacob as well represents the Lord, and therefore an earthly self corresponding to the spiritual self.
So these patriarchs, as people call them, are
yes.
The grandfather and the father and the son are parts of the same individual.
Well, and that individual is you. It's whoever's anyone.
You have an Abraham, race. You have an Isaac, you have a Jacob. And to me, it just, always with Swedenborg, when I first encounter it, it just seems so weird. It's so weird, It leads with weird. But after I'm there for a while, I think, but wait a second, like, who cares that so-and-so was the father of so-and-so and they had a kid named so-and-so, like from thousands of years ago? Oh, okay, good. That'll really make me a better person. But if this is something that is in everybody, this is your equipment. This is what you've got inside yourself.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you a story about yourself. I'm going to use these labels so you can sort of opt in or opt out, depending on how you want to look at it. But
I keep saying yes in the middle of you saying things, but I keep agreeing, and maybe like my filtering
this is so
mechanism.
uncharacteristic of you.
Yes, I'll grant you that. So you make a very good point there. It's weird. Like okay, there's this symbolic stuff, but it's the weird you don't know exchanged for the weirder that you know. Because while the methodology of information delivery that Swedenborg is asserting God does here, sure, that's weird to have a story that happened, but there's an internal sense and you kind of one-to-one it and stuff like that. Okay, and it applies to Jesus and you at the same time. Sure. But the idea, if we're going to take the premise that the Bible is some kind of revelation from God,
right?
That God said this is what I'm going to deliver to the human race. So, maybe not the only thing, but this is a big deal. The fundamental idea that it is a universally applicable text about the spiritual development that applies to every single human being. That's much more, of course, that's what God would deliver.
Yeah.
Rather than, here is a very narrow historical narrative about certain times I interceded in history, let alone with the time Abram was walking the earth, there were so many other people doing all this other stuff.
How many people were there on the planet?
What was going on with them? The Bible, as the idea that that's what God gave to us, that's weird. Like it's weird or weird.
You've changed your weirder.
There is no blue pill. It's two red pills. Am I getting that Matrix reference right? Yeah. So
and I love the fact that it also applies to the literal genetic descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because it applies to everybody. It's not saying you're not the chosen people. It's just saying this is on a level that affects everybody.
Yes.
And these are parts that are in everybody.
And when I do find in myself, and this is obviously why I would go around having a podcast where I keep reading through Swedenborg, is because for me, yes, there's this initial, I can feel it when we're saying it in front of people on the camera. They're like, what? I'm not buying this. But then as soon as you get into, there's Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Those are three parts of you. There's the heavenly part of you, the spiritual, and then the earthly part of you. And this is about how each of them are called into suddenly I'm feeling good. I'm feeling like, that's okay. I'm listening.
Yeah.
That seems like that. Then it makes sense why it's a story about these three different people, because there's these three different parts that we're dealing with. It's just like you look in the brain, and if you're talking to neuroscientists, they're like, well, you got your frontal lobe, which that's what makes you do this, and then you got your amygdala, and that's what regulates this. So there's these parts of your brain, and they have different impacts on your consciousness.
And equally as weird and obscure as,
Oh, for
to be told that you have an amygdala, I didn't know.
Oh man, it's just this little lump in there, and it's doing all this crazy stuff. Affects how you think about people and what you feel and what you fear. And so this is just saying, this is like your spiritual brain has these three parts to it. And here's how God calls those, here's how God changes you through changing those parts.
And it's the heavenly part of you that is called forward in your life.
At first.
That's how it all launches out. To say, well, yeah, get that highest part of yourself going in a more positive direction.
This clause then, Jehovah said to Abram, symbolizes nothing else than a first realization. So that moment plays out.
It's just not like it. If I said, what are your favorite passages from the Bible? I wouldn't lead with Jehovah said to Abram.
That's
It doesn't even
put
make
that
the
on
top
a book,
100.
Put that on a bookmark and yeah.
Right.
Frame that, crochet that, and frame it on.
He's getting a lot out of that.
So you at home, you, Jonathan, Rose, me, we all have had or will have, if God can possibly convince us to, a Jehovah said to Abram moment.
A moment.
That is the first realization, the first time you started your spiritual journey. When you go
Something
from
divine, kind of
that there's something
reaching out, and
there's something more or there's something bigger. I certainly couldn't pinpoint it in my life or anything. I don't know if it's a particular moment or just a certain phase, who knows. But the first realization that there's something greater than you calling you, that's what this is describing in
awesome.
Every person of every religion, of every time period in history. Jehovah says to your heavenly self, I'm calling you, we're going somewhere.
Are you in?
And from your birthplace symbolizes bodily and worldly concerns that were relatively superficial, while from your father's house symbolizes ones that were deeper. This can be seen from the symbolism of birth and from that of a father's house. So throughout the Bible, when you hear about birth and you hear about father's houses, which there's, in my father's house are many mansions,
It comes up.
there's a symbolism in each of those. That's the reason why that term was used instead of some other term. We concern ourselves with our body and the world on shallower and deeper levels. Shallower matters really do belong to the body. They are physical pleasures and sensory experiences. The deeper ones are emotions and factual knowledge. These are the things symbolized by Abram's birth and by his father's house. So
there's even things that you know or you think you know. There's desires and that also are going to you're going to need to move away from those things to go on the journey that you're being called to.
I put wow in my, I got to take these notes that are so important here. I put wow then next to that, because it's saying that you have, when you're called, you have certain ideas or beliefs or knowledge and certain feelings and desires and things that God is saying, all right, we're moving away from those. Those were occupying the central. That's where you live.
That's where you live.
But
you live there.
I'm gonna say we're gonna travel out of there. We're gonna have somewhere. I don't think you lose those things. Those are there, but they're no longer gonna be where you live, because you're gonna come live somewhere else, and that stuff is gonna be. You can take a trip there if you want.
You can send a postcard or
Hey, if you're enjoying this show, right after we're done recording these shows, we sit down and record the deep content. If this is a deep dive that we're doing, after that's done, we sit there and really give our thoughts on what did we say that we didn't get a chance to say, or what's a point we wanted to expand on that we didn't. So if you click that little join button, for a very small fee that goes directly to supporting our not-for-profit operations, we give you this extra behind-the-scenes look at what's on our mind, what impacted us most about the content, and hopefully give you some practical, cool stuff to use in your life. So if you want extra content and you want to support us at the same time, click the join button and let's go. All right, so this is the universal moment in everyone. This is also the story of the start of the chosen people. So there's a thing going on where God is choosing a part of you, and we know it's called the heavenly self initially, these heavenly self, spiritual, but let's dig in a little more to like what part of you is the chosen part. What's God's favorite part of you?
Before there was a chosen people, there was just a chosen person, in effect, right? Like it started with one person, then it grew from there.
So this is, I think, the next verse. Let me make sure that's Genesis. This is the very next verse. And I will make you into a great nation and bless you and make your name great, and you will be a blessing. So he's saying, hey, you're going to do really great things. The symbolism of I will make you into a great nation as a kingdom in the heavens and on earth can be seen from the symbolism of a nation. In an inner sense, a nation is the heavenly quality of love and the good that comes out of it. So it is everyone everywhere who has the heavenly gift of love and charity.
Everyone everywhere. Could you be more specific?
Everyone everywhere, not everyone everywhere though, just period. Everyone everywhere who has the heavenly gift of love and charity. So that's the part God is trying to call out, the love and the charity.
The love part in you.
Yeah.
The loving compassion.
And saying, so like picture coming up to you when you're just starting your journey, and he's like, okay, here's all this. There's all this stuff to work with here. You just go think about any person, think about yourself. We're a patchwork of like, there's stuff that's really great, there's stuff that's challenging.
There's talents, there's knowledge, there's memories, there's interests, there's
good habits, bad habits,
resentments, there's
tendencies, blind spots, perceptiveness. Like there's just
fallacies. That's right.
There's just like a big. So God is coming up to you, and saying like, this part. I'm really going to focus on this part of you. This is the best in you. You like you bring out the best in me. Like I'm going to bring out the best in you, and that part of you is going to become this great blessing. Okay, that's what it is about. I'm going to make a great nation out of you. Like even though right now you're just one person in this person, in the person I'm calling, I'm going to make you into a whole nation. Okay, so
and this was at a time when he had no children at all, right?
That's right. That's right.
And so the prospect was not like, for real?
Here, because the subject in an inner sense is the Lord. Again, remember, this is about us and God at the same time. Okay.
Which is wild.
It means every heavenly quality and the resulting good. Okay, so it's both talking about every person, and then it's talking about every kind of goodness. So you listed a few heavenly qualities. Yeah. So there's like, you talk about big, broad categories like compassion. And there's like, I don't know, like being a good listener and being a trustworthy and whatever are the divine qualities.
And desire to be a better person in other people's lives. And then individual things that you just love and adore. You know, the ways that you want to help people or things that
just think of 5 people that you admire, and what qualities do they have? Like are they steady? Are they dependable? Are they, are they gentle? What is it? Those heavenly qualities, those are the kinds of things the Lord calls in us.
And everybody has them. Everybody everywhere.
Nobody doesn't have an Abram of some kind.
Yeah.
Or else
so that
it
really
couldn't be in the
changes
Word.
The nature of the book right there.
Yeah. The reason why the Bible, Swedenborg calls it the Word, the reason why it is divine is because it's universal. That the divine is infinite, and so applies to everyone, everywhere, at every time. Okay, I'm just saying. So it is the Lord's kingdom, which exists in people who have love and charity in them. In the highest sense, the Lord himself is a great nation, because he is heavenliness itself and goodness itself, since all the good growing out of love and charity comes from him alone.
And when you try to think about how that little kid, Jesus as a child, when you look at who Swedenborg says that is and what's going to happen to that person, yes, all the heavens, in a sense, are within. I mean, they're kind of the body of Christ, right?
Yeah.
They're, a great nation. Yes. Yeah. But a lot of people and a very good place. Also,
heavenliness itself, I drew a box around that. We'll get our money's worth here. So love itself. Jesus is love itself. God is love itself. So you can think of, because God appears as a character in the Bible as well and seems to display, you sort of start to think of him as a person who is sometimes cantankerous and sometimes arbitrary and
blows hot and cold, and
you can kind of not be feeling that great. To understand that that's all symbolic as well, and that God is love itself. So all those qualities and those people you're thinking of, those come from, that's God. Like, here's a little bit of me. Here you go. So love itself comes to you and says, "Hey, do you want to come to the promised land?" As a result, the Lord also is his actual kingdom. That is, he is the all in all of his kingdom, as every angel in heaven acknowledges. This shows then that "I will make you into a great nation" symbolizes the Lord's kingdom in the heavens and the earth.
Which is a non-static entity. I forget how many tens of millions of people a year, die and so on. But this is an ever enlarging, massive. So great nation is quite an understatement.
So Lord's kingdom on the heavens and the earth. So Lord's kingdom in the heavens would be in heaven. So the actual afterlife. And on earth would be everybody who has a state of heaven within them.
Yeah. Everybody who's being a decent person or working on themselves or contributing to society and it's a lot.
Okay, and all that, and I think another reason why it's so...
And to state the obvious, it crosses national, ethnic, racial, blah, blah, blah boundaries. I like how Swedenborg, and he says the angels love to think this way, just blanket sweeping, paint with a broad brush. This applies, and everybody's different. They're all unique. Everybody has their own love and their own understanding, but these things are true. Everybody's got an Abraham. Everybody's invited to be part of that heavenly kingdom.
Well, that's the way that goodness actually is. So if you are going on some kind of, okay, I finally got my courage up and I'm going across the world to do this crazy adventure in a country where I don't speak the language. Somebody's there, you have almost nothing in common with them. They do something kind for you, like they help you when you need directions or they give you something. That's you recognize that right away. So that is the quality of the Lord coming through. It's just so obvious that it's the same coming out of anybody. So this is why angels like to think that way, because that's how it actually is.
There's a geeky little Latin point that comes to mind here, which is that there's a word for goodness, bonum, which is singular, and then there's bona, which are good things, goodnesses in the plural.
Yeah.
And then there's verum, which is truth in the singular, and vera, truths in the plural. And even though Swedenborg was always talking about these two having a relationship with each other, the singular of goodness, the default is that you'll have a singular goodness and you'll have multiple truths. That's the way it goes. And Swedenborg talks about that. In a way, there's only one goodness. It's love. And
right.
That takes many, 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 many different forms. But there's really only one. You get to truths, like different understandings, insights, strategies, plans, thoughts, whatever, insights. Lots of those. But even in the Swedenborg's Latin, you can see that bonum, that the singular is dominant on that side. But very often the truth side is interestingly multiple. That just struck me. So.
No, that's legit. Because, so let's say that there's a goodness, which is cardiovascular health. I don't even know how you'd measure that, but it's something about I don't even know, you're supposed to exercise to get cardiovascular health, but what improves? Is it your lungs or is it your blood vessels? I don't know.
The slew rate
through the vessels. Somehow that gets better. There's different ways you can do the rowing machine. You can do jogging. You can do sports. There's different ways to get there, but the end state of good cardiovascular health, there's just that.
It's good.
Yeah.
Right.
It's good.
And the physician looks and they say, good.
One
good.
Something over something. I
Right.
guess that's blood pressure. Well, you know what I'm talking about. Okay.
We have a lot of expertise on this show.
That's I'm not trying to seem more educated than others, but it just
it just comes naturally.
I can't help what I am. All right, hey, let's talk about Israel.
Okay.
I mean, that's a hot topic.
That's a hot,
In the
it's in
word
here
right now.
somewhere, isn't it?
Oh, and we're not going to talk about Israel, meaning the current country. We're talking about the name Israel in the Bible.
Yes. Who was a person, and that was another name. It's interesting, isn't it?
That's
Abram became Abraham. Jacob got a very different name in Israel.
That's right.
Doesn't even sound like Jacob anymore.
Yeah. And so right, this is already kind of controversial. And in this, there's a we're gonna have to be an adult. There's a reference to reproductive organs in this.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know what those would
Yeah.
have to do with each other. Okay.
Your name will no longer be called Jacob, but Israel will be called your name. And God called his name Israel. And God said, I am God the Thunderer. Grow and multiply. A nation and a throng of nations will develop out of you, and monarchs will come from your genitals. He usually uses loins in other translations.
Yes, that's
Swedenborg
right.
usually goes really literal. All right, so we got past that. Here's Swedenborg's explanation. Israel stands for the Lord. That's
Well,
Abram.
I thought Abram, doesn't his contract say that he gets to be?
According to Swedenborg, like the entire Bible has layers of meaning. Entire Bible is about God, who's in his human form is Jesus. So, and it's all about our spiritual development. So each of these things is going to have that symbolism.
And that would and does stretch belief, but Jesus said so himself in that thing that we've referenced before in other episodes of Luke 24, where he's on the road to Emmaus and he's telling people, and then he meets with all the disciples behind closed doors. He appears to them and is telling them how everything in the Old Testament, in Moses and the Psalms and the prophets was about him. So we shouldn't be completely surprised that all the major characters have something to do with him, but it still is a bit of a shock, isn't it?
Swedenborg says, some people realize that he is Israel in the highest sense. And since he is, obviously the nation and throng of nations and monarchs from his genitals are the heavenly and spiritual qualities of love. Consequently, they are also the people who possess the heavenly and spiritual qualities of love.
Okay, that's kind of typical, like that. It's difficult to parse, but he always leads with the qualities, and then it's also the people who have those qualities.
Yep.
Right. Like that's a favorite thing of Swedenborg's. That he says, in my editing, I have to. Yeah, those passages come up so often that he's, and it's hard to get that point. But he says that angels really like to think of these things in the abstract. So rather than thinking of this person or that person, which might limit your thinking, think in terms of what would love want to do in this situation, or what would wisdom, think about it in the abstract, and then you can sort of apply that to individuals. But the beauty of that is one size fits all. That's the great thing about Swedenborg's approach to the Bible.
Don't think about Bobby Fischer. Think about the ability to play chess well, because that could manifest in any number of people. Yeah, something like that.
And there are many chess masters over time. And that's right.
That's right.
And what you say about chess masters can also apply to so-called goats in other, sports or what have you.
Right. So that makes sense that like from where do all the people who possess heavenly and spiritual qualities of love come from? They come from the Lord. So that's why it's from you. There's all this stuff is going to happen.
All this, yes.
We were just saying earlier in this episode.
And monarchs don't mean monarchs, et cetera. Yeah.
Okay, let's look at there's a different meaning for Israel than there was for Abram. So this is Secrets of Heaven 2928. The word mentions the people of the land in many places where it talks about Israel and Jerusalem. On an inner level, it symbolizes a spiritual religion, or those who are part of a spiritual church, or in other words, the Lord's spiritual kingdom. Its inhabitants are called people of the land. So we said before, Abram is the heavenly part of you.
Yes.
And then there's the spiritual and earthly parts of you.
Yes, right. And spiritual usually has something to do with the more cognitive side, as opposed to the heart side of love that we've been talking about.
Yes.
That kingdom has something to do with the kingdom of the mind, of the structures of thought, understanding, teachings, those kinds of things.
Yeah. It does, and it does have this like holographic nature to it, where there's some people that Swedenborg describes as heavenly people or spiritual people. That he talks about in the afterlife, there'd be certain people with whom the will, like the love is the first thing, and so they're like heavenly people. For some, there's the wisdom is the first thing, so they're spiritual people. But then within each person, there's a will and an intellect, and so there are spiritual things and heavenly things within each person.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, all the parts are right.
All right, let's talk more about the chosen people. I think this is the first time we hear the phrase "the chosen" in this. So this is Secrets of Heaven 3755. The chosen symbolize people who live good, true lives.
It makes sense that Swedenborg would say that.
Yep.
But it's one of those sort of moments.
So that's the chosen, and it's funny because God makes that offer to everyone to live the good, true life. It's almost like the chosen are the people who choose to say yes.
Exactly. Because God, it's so often that way with the Bible, isn't it? That the things that are attributed to God, sometimes including awful characteristics or pettiness or something, is really about the people. And so when it says God's chosen people, it really means the people who chose God.
Yeah.
Right?
Chosen is like the verb. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
on your part.
You're actually the choosers are the people. They have an option.
So he gives an example where this appears in Scripture. To lead astray, if possible, even the chosen, means leading astray people who live a life of goodness and truth and therefore live in the Lord. They are the ones the word calls chosen.
There's something so fundamental about the idea of chosen people. We've already talked about it several times, but it's just striking me that it is, I mean, the classic analogy is when you have kids who are trying to figure out teams for some sport or something, at recess or whatever it is, and do you get do they value you, or who are the kids who gets picked first, and that it's got that feel to it, doesn't it? When you say chosen people, it would be like, okay, 200 people showed up for the audition, and we're going to pick 3 of them to be the prominent people in this. So we're going to winnow this, and all the rest of those people, they can come back to the next audition. Maybe they'll get picked next time or something. But it's so counterintuitive that Swedenborg's saying, first of all, that everybody is chosen. Like from God's point of view, already made the choice. No, you're in. If it's up to me, you're in.
Right.
Everybody. Absolute blanket. And from conception, I was just reading this about how the Lord put certain characteristics in there. From conception, you're not even born yet, and you've already got things put in you that make the likelihood of you, makes it possible for you to go to heaven, that's installed before you even come out of the womb. But the reason chosen still applies is that there are people who opt in and people who don't. So it still is meaningful to talk about some group that says yes and others who don't opt in.
Well,
but it's self-selected.
Yes. Yet
it's not God sitting up there saying, okay, well, you're my favorites over here.
Yeah, it's like the door. I think this is communicating is that membership is open anytime. It's just, but it's not
this is not a club. This is not a secret society or something.
Living a life of goodness and truth, and there's many phases and steps in that, obviously. But trying to live a good life, that's the choosing. That's the chosen. That's the chosen people. Is everyone who trying to be good.
And some people reject that for the first 40, 50, 60 years of their life, and then they may make it different because the Lord has also put that into everybody, that you've got the option to opt in, even if the first 200,000 times you said no, yes is still an option.
So the chosen is universal, open to everyone, has to do with how loving are you. That's really important to know. And actually, it can be damaging Swedenborg was trying to warn religious people that it's damaging to think that you are part of a select club that God favors more than he favors other people.
And I'm assuming just by characteristics of birth or religion or nationality or race or something like that, right?
Yeah, so this is what he says. There were many people among the children of Israel in the past, and there are many among Jews today who believe they more than all others are the chosen people because they are circumcised. Likewise, there are many among Christians, that was Swedenborg's group, who believe they are the chosen people because they have been baptized. Yet both of these rituals, circumcision and baptism, were intended only as a sign and a reminder to be purified from evils. This purification is what truly makes people chosen. Okay, so
It's great teaching.
I mean, it almost just can be left without further explanation. So let's go to the next one. An outward change without an inward change is like a church building with no worship inside. It is useless to everyone, except perhaps as a stable for animals. I think he's making a joke. I think that's an 18th century joke.
The 18th century Swedes had a very dry sense of humor, but I think he's got a smile on his face when he.
An outward change, meaning baptism, circumcision, any ritual washing, something like that. An outward change without an inward change is like a field full of stalks and canes that have no grain. It is like a vine that has branches and leaves but no grapes. It is like the fig tree without fruit that the Lord cursed. It is like the lamps in the hands of the foolish young women who had no oil. In fact, it is like living in a mausoleum with corpses under our feet, bones on the walls, and ghosts that fly near the ceiling at night. It is like a carriage drawn by leopards with a wolf on top as the driver and an idiot sitting inside. All right.
Okay, that got a little too personal.
Yeah, man.
I remember translating that. I was laughing so hard about the idiot in the
So I guess that this is Swedenborg, commenting on how he used to be and how many of the people he knew were, who think that he was surrounded by aristocracy and people of power in the church who thought that because they did these external acts, they were good, but they weren't trying to not harm their fellow human beings.
There are millions and millions of people who think that the physical washing of baptism somehow actually removes sins, and that's it. You're done. You did that. You're good.
Yeah, but obviously, you can't get baptized and then go out and hurt people. That's not good.
You would hope not, yeah.
I mean, that wouldn't be. No one would say that you've changed or something.
Right.
It's just that's just it feels self-evident.
It's like eating food in order to feel love. It's never gonna reach. It's on the wrong level.
Our outer self is not human. It only looks human. Our inner self, which is our capacity for wisdom from God, is what makes us human. This, then, is also the nature of people who have been circumcised or baptized, but have not circumcised or washed their heart.
Which, again, is biblical.
Yeah.
You don't need Swedenborg to tell you that there's a circumcision of the heart.
Right.
The Bible talks about that. I think it's in the Old Testament. I think it's in the New Testament.
Okay, and this is where Swedenborg starts to get into this warning. The evil of self-love. This is
one of his ancient enemies.
One of his nemesis.
Yeah.
Which is, in case anyone's not familiar with the term, this is the belief that I am more important than anyone else. Everything is about me, and what I want and need, that matters a lot. If other people don't do what I want, off with their heads. That sort of vibe.
Exactly. Yeah, the extreme self-centeredness, disregard for other people, absolutely cold to, if they're saying nice things, I love you. If they're not, get rid of them. Doesn't matter. Torture them. Doesn't matter.
The evil of self-love inspires some to believe that there is only one nation that Jehovah ever chose. They view everyone else in the world as a comparative slave, and so worthless that she or he can be murdered at will or tortured. Any evil done as a result of this false doctrine, or of other doctrine built and founded on it, is an evil resulting from a false teaching with evil origins. Well,
Okay.
look back at history, and I'm talking about like history all over the globe. Like how many crusades of all kinds have there been in the Abrahamic religions, in other religions, with even stuff that's not a religious ideology, but still carries that weight with it to say, we're in the group that matters, you are not, so it doesn't matter what we do to you.
Your life is, yeah. There's some people have taken that view that those others, whoever they are, that they don't really feel pain, or they're not human, or they don't have human. Often there's language of talking about people as insects, or kind of dismissive language because it doesn't recognize the humanity of people, and somehow the sense that one of me is worth like 100 or 1,000 of those other.
The exact opposite of divine love,
isn't it?
Which is that I'm calling every person, and just the obvious ethics, that everybody feels like you feel. Everybody is having a life like you have a life.
Yeah.
Everybody should be kept free from suffering if possible.
And to them,
that
matters.
That's their whole life.
That's their life. Yeah.
So in some ways, it's the most egregious evil to think, because of religion, I can be inhuman to people.
So often he talks about falsity and evil, and they can seem kind of abstract sometimes, like what's the evil and falsity? And here he's talking about evil from a falsity that had evil origins. So somehow there's sort of two levels of evil in there, but that the falsity originally came, so there was some self-centeredness that came up with some teaching that kind of serves the lower self, maybe like we're special and nobody else is, and God wants us to live and wants everybody else just to serve us because we're the best. And then you get an evil that comes from that, which is that you're mistreating people on the basis of that falsity that had its origin in evil.
So this is what he's warning about. He says that belief, he says, it destroys the inner self and shuts it off so that no conscience can ever form in it. People who do such evil are the ones the word describes as standing in blood, because they are awash in savagery against all humankind, which fails to adulate them and their creed or to offer gifts on their altar. You don't agree with me?
Ooh, yeah. That's potent. I mean, he's got it turned up to 10 there.
This is a different place in Secrets of Heaven where he's talking about the same thing. When people have adopted and hardened themselves in the belief that some have been chosen and the rest have not, and that the entrance into heaven is based on mercy alone, meaning God can just choose someone and you're in, you're out.
Okay, there's no other criteria than God's favor.
Right.
Like you go through trees in the woods and you mark every third one, but you're going to cut it down.
Right. No matter how a person has lived, they are told, and I have heard and seen this several times, that the Lord never denies heaven to anyone. So people in the afterlife are told, look, no, God doesn't deny heaven to anyone. And then they get put through
Nobody is shut out.
An experiment. There's a spiritual experiment that gets done on them right here.
I love that. When the scientist still surfaces in Swedenborg's works,
He said, if they want, they can learn this from experience. They are taken up to a certain community in heaven whose inhabitants lived lives marked by a desire for goodness. In other words, by neighborly love. When the subjects of the experiment arrive, though, being evil, this means the people who thought there's only one group, it's mercy, I'm in the group, other people are out of the group, so I'll go to heaven automatically. Being evil, they start to suffer distress and inner torment because the life there is opposed to them. So the life in this group of people who lived by love.
It's like an incompatibility or like a tension between these different worldviews.
When heavenly light appears, it makes them look like devils, almost devoid of human shape. Some have their faces drawn back, some look like a set of teeth, and some look monstrous in other ways. So they cringe at themselves and throw themselves headlong into hell. The deeper the better, as far as they are concerned.
And it's interesting that the good people don't apparently say anything. They don't say you're bad, or you're thinking about this in the wrong way, or it's all self-realized, right? It's just their own self-concept.
Yeah.
These people see themselves in this horrible light, nothing but teeth, or monstrous, or in some way, and they can't. It's unbearable. It's literally unbearable, and so they throw themselves out of there to get out of that atmosphere, because their mindset, their worldview, does not accord with the atmosphere in that community.
Man, well, because I think that the idea is monstrous. So if hell, another way we could summarize hell fundamentally, according to Swedenborg, is I matter more than you.
That's a great one.
Isn't that
what a classic?
Isn't that what hell is? Is I matter more than you.
That's right.
You don't matter. You could be said, you don't matter.
Yeah,
and
that's right. I matter, you don't. That's the difference between us. Yeah.
So that's a monstrous thing. It doesn't even seem as bad when you say it as when you see the effects that come out of it.
Because Swedenborg says that some of these things have so many evils, and you can see it. That wow, I've just been listening to a couple of different audio books about the First World War for whatever reason, and 20 million people killed, 21 million people injured. Like a lot of bad things happened there,
Right.
That was not sort of overwhelming love that was going on, and it had a long knock-on effect. And the other thing that's in my mind on the positive side is that isn't part of what we're talking about is that everyone has a chosen part.
Yeah.
Everyone has an Abraham. Everyone has a chosen part, and then it depends. Would you agree on the way that you relate to that? Do you identify with that part? Do you let your Abraham run the tribe? Is Abraham what you're living for, or is it some other character in these biblical stories? Are you some negative? Do you identify with the Philistines or somebody else in the story?
So, and this is also sort of a classic,
because there's no out group. Like if everybody has a chosen part,
right?
God is never. No one's out as far as
that's the
God
essence of what heaven is, and it's also a classic thing of Swedenborg is to say, look, nobody gets sent to hell. Here's an example: people jump in there. If you have a central belief that you cherish and love, which is that me and my group matter more than you, and all the problems that are with that, that is what hell is. And so when you get into actual heaven, which is like, oh no, the other people are what it's all about. I want them to be happy. I wouldn't want to put myself above them. That's not fun and not comfortable. And so they say, no, I need to get away from that. I need to get toward this corrupted kind of love, which is love for myself. So that's why Swedenborg makes the claim that hell is not a place of punishment. This is a way God takes care of people.
It's where you can breathe.
God takes care of people that are in this state of hell, who have chosen to be in this state of hell. Hell is a place that's there to protect them and even work on them and change them
and socialize them and give them community. And that's right. And when I picture those two groups there, it was flashing through my mind that so you have one group who has this kind of really hardline view of chosen people, it sounds like. So to them, maybe they're looking down on these angels, right?
Oh yeah, right.
Because it's not you, it's not about you. We're the chosen. The angels, because they're all about love and compassion and respect and so on. Swedenborg says that the Lord esteems everyone, hell esteems no one. Like, I love that little quote.
Interesting.
You know?
Yeah.
So the angels probably love those people. And they can say, bummer that you are so attached to that view, because I don't think that's going to work out well for you. But you're great. I mean, we'd love to have you as part of our community. But they're going, I can't stand the way I see myself right now. You know,
That's a good point. In case anyone's not familiar with the attitude of heaven, nobody during this experiment where people get shown their own ideas and things, none of these people in heaven are like, haha, look at you. You thought you'd come up here with us. Turns out you've got all these problems and you're bad. Swedenborg says very clearly elsewhere that any angel in heaven would gladly trade places with someone in hell if the person in hell wanted it, because that's what the nature of heaven is. And heaven is also totally pride-free. That the part of getting into heaven is to realize, without God, I would be a total mess.
They're not sort of, don't you know who I am? You know, that's not who the angels are at all. They're just, just want to help.
There's an essential component of heaven, which is to realize that without God, you would be swallowed up by evils of all kinds, which is sort of a strange thing. But
it's a weird thing, but somehow that actually does allow everybody to be more loving and kindly and compassionate toward others and humble and...
Well, you see it right when you encounter someone who's somebody who's in recovery or something, who's messed up in their lives, or they feel like they have, and they just lack this certain sense of superiority, and there's this humility. It feels great to be around because you can trust them. They're not going to. So I think you can tell that there's a sense of that. The heavenly, it's free. How do you get fully free of the ego or the I believe I matter more than you? Part of it is just like, I'm not. Listen, I'm no better. It's like the angel says in Revelation, "Don't worship me. I'm no better than you." You know.
Yeah. I'm just like you, or worse, when you get right down to it, or that kind of thing. It's a very humble. Yeah, it's just interesting to think about the dynamic between those two groups.
Yeah, that the angels would never want to be like in a chosen group.
No.
Even though they are
and
in
they'd
the
say,
actual.
In some ways, it's sort of like, oh well, then you belong here. I'll go somewhere else. Or
Yeah. For our last section, let's look at gathering the chosen. What does that mean? It's the pulling together of everybody who strives to live a good life. This is from Secrets of Heaven 4060. And they will gather his chosen people from the four winds, from one end of the heavens right to the other end of them. Symbolizes the establishment of a new church. And is this from the Book of Revelation?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah,
because it does. That's another place where you hear about chosen people, and there is this bunch of prophecy about the gathering of the chosen and the elect, and
and this is probably how Christians are able to kind of take that idea of chosen, is because this is in the New Testament,
right?
And here it's talking about chosen.
So what's it actually talking about, though, is the establishment of a new church. And so that would mean a new spiritual era for the human race, that there's something, God is putting together a new something. The chosen people are those with the goodness that comes of love and faith. The four winds from which they will be gathered mean all phases of goodness and truth. Like developmental phases?
Oh, that's an interesting expression, isn't it? All phases. Because what it initially made me think of is all different kinds of teachings, mindsets, or
that's cool.
That kind of, like, it'll come from everywhere. And there are a lot of prophecies in the prophets that I love these passages that talk about how kind of universal this new church, this era will be, that it'll be coming out of all these different nations, and so I believe that's probably what these four winds mean too, because doesn't it go on to say something from one end of?
So it says one end of the heavens to the other of them means the inner and outer levels of the church. So
okay.
So there's
So there are people who are viewing this in a fairly shallow or limited way.
practical.
Sure, you're in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's the thinkers and the
Philosophical.
yeah,
Great. All the different
people
parts
who are
of it.
deep in it. Sure.
I love the idea of that. I think about like assemble all the different kinds of people who are trying to be good and all the different ways that they're trying to be good and all the
So
different
cool.
beliefs that they have. But we're going to be able to pull them together into one machine for goodness. That's cool. I like that.
And that's the heaven project, right? That's what heaven is doing, is trying to gather all these people. And I also just thought about the other quote that Jesus says at some point, doesn't he, that many are called but few are chosen,
Mm-hmm.
which is there's chosen again in the New Testament context. And the thought that you send out more invitations than, not everybody comes to the invitation.
Man,
But if chosen meant that God is selecting you, why would many be called? Just choose the chosen.
yeah.
Why? That makes no sense.
Many are called, few accept. Like we sent out
Because
this.
that obviously means that it's on the other people.
Yeah.
Because I invited more people than said yes.
We sent out
So-
the email and it only had a 12% open rate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, but I'm getting excited about the idea of all these people who are those with the goodness that comes of love and faith, and all phases of goodness and truth, the inner and outer levels of the church. So it's gathering them all together. So I was getting interviewed yesterday for the IANDS podcast, which is the International
nice.
Association for Near-Death Studies, and I think of. So if you look at what we're doing, like the Swedenborg corner of the internet of spirituality, and we think this is really good information, we're trying to do that. And IANDS, if anyone's not familiar, that's the sort of the original organization that kind of studied the near-death experience thing, and like the communities that grew up around it, and that there's you wouldn't call it a religion, but there's sort of some
they have
teachings and
meetings and
Yeah.
There's
so I was just thinking about, I was saying at the end, he said, do you want to say anything else? And I was like, keep up the good work, because they're trying to do something in particular to try to get people to realize that there's life after death, that realize that love is important, life review, standing in the light. There's all these good things. So they're doing their thing, right?
Yeah.
And then there's us, like Swedenborg people. We're doing our thing, trying to accomplish what we hope we're trying to do, part of what the divine is trying to do in the world. And then you have all the big religions, and you have the different parts of those religions, and then you have like the different movements and the different spiritualities and the little subsects and meditators, and it's like all the people, all the Avengers. The idea that you try to assemble them all together for something that can, because in the past, things that have meant well or tried to be spiritual can work against each other, can work apart from each other, right?
Well, it's just infamous how denominations of exactly the same, like these different Protestant or Swedenborgian denominations,
right, can just but the idea that God is going to figure out a way to, like, all right, we're going to pull all this together, and it's going to create something that's functional and that I can actually reach into the world through in all these, with this like fullness, because of all the different vessels for it. I mean, that's kind of cool.
That is cool. And it's supplying the Lord with this giant body in a way of being able to do good. If you think of like billions of people being able to do his will, help people, love people,
Yeah.
solve problems,
I read this story about, there was a baby who was born with a genetic condition, and this was the first time that they like fixed it through gene therapy. And there was like this whole, like there's this baby, and then there was this whole collage of institutions that were all doing these different things and like working together in different universities and all this stuff, and they got something together that cured this baby. It's amazing. That's kind of how it is. It's like you've got to, if you're going to really do a difficult task, you need these different kind of organizations with these different capabilities and these different specialties. So what if the spiritualities of the world could could work together effectively to bring heaven to earth in that way. I mean, that's pretty exciting.
That's very exciting. And the opposite of it is that attitude that we were talking about a moment ago, which is just absolutely generic. Again, that's not limited to one group of people or another. That sense of I matter and you don't, that's universal. Everybody's got that in their
Right.
spiritual basement, so to speak.
Right.
That is so divisive. That wants to put people down, wants to reject, well, I don't care about this whole group, and I really don't care about this. And doesn't it come all the way down to, don't they have that horrible saying of like, it's you and me against the world, and I'm not so sure about you.
This is from True Christianity 198. Gathering the chosen people from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other, means building a new heaven and a new church that consists of people who have faith in the Lord and who live by his commandments. This is from Sacred Scripture. The angels with a trumpet and a loud voice mean heaven as our source of divine truth. And the gatherings of the chosen people from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other, means a new kind of church. Specifically, it's love and faith.
A new kind. And when it's striking me that, for some reason, that thought of the trumpet and this idea, because it seems like it's such a theme on this show of trying to say there's a different way of looking at all this. I mean, every week that I come on this show, my mind is blown. Every week I'm learning and seeing things I never saw before. It's cool. So it's not that we're transmitting something to other people. It's like, we're getting insights that we didn't get before, which I love.
Definitely. Well, I think this conversation and inspiration, like I do think, Swedenborg makes the claim that all goodness and truth comes from heaven. It definitely, like I can even hear one of these talks that we do later, and I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. I should live my life
yeah, I know,
like that.
Right.
And I think it's the
Take
same.
my advice. I'm not using it.
I think it's the same for people of all kinds who put out things and give messages, even who talk to each other. I think when you're just talking to someone one-on-one and they're trying to help you with something, I think they get inspiration that they didn't even have before.
Yeah.
Because it's the Lord coming through.
That's right. And so I think it's that heavenly truth that has that love in it, that has that higher perspective, that doesn't think of things primarily in terms of, oh, well, you're a this flavor of human.
Yep.
You're a this religion, you're a this, race, you're a this. It's just operating on a different level. And so I kind of just somehow that trumpet got me in that quote. It's cool to think about that because it's kind of calling you to like a higher perspective. It's calling you to get back to the beginning of what we were saying. It's calling you from a sort of very external, I know what's going on here. You're just, you're from Poland, so that means you're this way or something. And no, that's not what we're talking about. It calls you to that higher. You have to leave home. You have to leave that to take your Abrahamic journey.
Man, I was just thinking how we're going to wrap this up, and then there you go. So what is it to be the chosen? Who are the chosen people? Everybody who accepts the call of God. The story in the Bible of the chosen people is the story of that first dawning realization in you that there's something out there that's calling you to something better. The journey out of the land you're in is a journey out of the thoughts and feelings and the kind of mindset you used to have. Going into the Holy Land is the qualities of love and truth that lead you to lead this better life. And so the gathering of the chosen is just God orchestrating it so everybody who's trying to live well, we more and more collaborate to accomplish the goal of the divine, which is the happiness of the human race. That's uplifting. That's the kind of chosen I can get on board with. Okay. Thanks, Jonathan. This was great. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We appreciate so much your support. If you're not already subscribed, please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit the like button, and we will see you soon. We'll see you on the next show.